When I, Michael Harper, bought my first home in a quiet Arizona gated community, I never expected the HOA president, Karen, to demand I vacate it for her guests. Her cold entitlement and controlling nature turned my peaceful sanctuary into a battleground, leaving me stunned and outraged. But with my deed in hand and a steadfast refusal to back down, I found a way to turn the tables completely. And just wait until you see how this confrontation ended and why justice in the end finally prevailed. When I finally signed the papers for my first home in a gated community in Arizona, I felt like I had reached a personal milestone. After years of living in cramped apartments and enduring noisy neighbors, I had a place I could truly call my own. My name is Michael Harper, a software engineer, and I had dreamed of this. A quiet home with a small garden where I could grow tomatoes and roses, a backyard pool where I could relax on hot summer days, and a sense of privacy that I had never experienced before. I imagined lazy weekends spent with a book on the patio, morning coffees with the sun spilling across the deck, and the satisfaction of knowing that everything around me was mine to shape and protect. For weeks I unpacked, arranged, and made the house into a home. I planted flowers along the edge of the garden, hung lights around the patio, and even installed a small fountain by the pool. It was peaceful, almost perfect. Life finally felt manageable, stable, and safe. Then, one evening, everything changed. I was just sitting down with a glass of iced tea when a firm, insistent knock echoed through the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the tone of the knock was different from the usual polite greetings of neighbors. There was an edge to it, an authority that immediately set my nerves on alert. I got up, walked to the door, and opened it to see Karen. She was the president of our HOA, a woman whose reputation preceded her in hushed conversations among neighbors. With her perfectly styled hair, sharp blazer, and that same cold smile that seemed to dismiss everyone else's feelings, she looked every bit the person in control. Her eyes scanned my home as if she had every right to judge it, and then she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "Michael, I'm having some guests next week, so you need to vacate your house for a couple of days. We'll put them here. Your home is more suitable." I froze. The words didn't register immediately, and my mind stumbled, searching for the logic that would make this statement reasonable. But there wasn't any. She wasn't joking. She wasn't offering a suggestion. She was treating my home as though it were a hotel she had the authority to assign at will. A mix of disbelief and disbelief washed over me. My mouth opened, but no words came out. How could someone in a position of power, think they could demand possession of my personal space just because their guests needed better accommodations? I looked past her, imagining the little patio, the potted plants, the pool shimmering under the last light of day, and it hit me. Their right to my home was not just unwarranted, it was impossible. Her cold smile didn't waver, and it became clear that she expected compliance. The shock wasn't just that someone would make such an outrageous demand, it was that she believed she could get away with it. The sense of violation hit hard, and for the first time the quiet sanctuary I had worked so hard to create felt fragile, like a bubble that could be popped at any moment by the whims of someone who confused authority with ownership. I stepped back, letting the door close a fraction, trying to gather my thoughts. My heart was racing, my hands were tense, and my mind was spinning. I had bought this house fair and square. The law, the deed, every part of it was mine. And yet, in that moment, Karen's audacity left me speechless. My dream of peace suddenly feeling far more precarious than I could have imagined. Shock rooted me to the spot. the weight of her words pressing down like a storm cloud. It wasn't just about a couple of days. It was the realization that someone could assume so much power over what was mine simply because they felt entitled. That night, I understood something important. My journey as a homeowner wasn't going to be as serene as I had pictured, and this, I realized, was only the beginning. At first, I thought I misheard her. My mind tried to rationalize her words, to find some hidden meaning, some way that this could possibly make sense. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, I thought. Maybe she meant something else. But Karen's expression told me otherwise. There was no mistake, no ambiguity. The cold precision in her eyes made it terrifyingly clear. She was deadly serious. She began explaining herself as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her important guests, she said, required the best living conditions, and apparently that meant my house, not hers, should be used. Every word dripped with self-assured entitlement, the kind of certainty that comes when someone believes rules and fairness exist only to serve them. My skin crawled under her tone, that perfect blend of condescension and authority, as if she were inspecting a hotel room she owned rather than a home someone else had painstakingly built. "You're just a renter, right?" she sneered, looking down at me with a smirk that felt designed to belittle and intimidate. The words struck a nerve. A physical tension spread through my body. I could feel my fists clenching almost instinctively, nails pressing into my palms. I wanted to argue, to shout, to make her see that she was wrong, but her sheer audacity rooted me in place for a moment. My mind replayed every interaction I had ever heard about her in the neighborhood. Karen wasn't just an overbearing HOA president. She had a long, well-documented reputation for controlling every aspect of community life. She fined neighbors for flowers that were too bright, issued warnings for children's toys left on the grass, and even restricted pool access on a whim. She thrived on rules, on authority, on bending the community to fit her own vision, and she enjoyed every second of it. But this, demanding my home, this was something new. This crossed every line I had known. This wasn't about rules or neighborhood standards. This was pure audacity, a direct assault on my autonomy, my hard-earned sense of ownership, and my peace of mind. It wasn't enough for her to be powerful within the HOA. Now she wanted to assert control over my private life. I felt a wave of emotion I hadn't expected. It was more than frustration or disbelief. It was genuine hatred. Not irrational, not fleeting, but the kind of anger born from witnessing entitlement so brazen it feels almost unreal. My mind raced with indignation. How could someone feel so entitled to walk into my life, to take what was mine, simply because she thought she had the right? How could a person so small in empathy believe she could wield power without consequence? Every fiber of my being wanted to resist, to push back against this invasion. And yet, beneath the anger, a careful part of me started analyzing the situation, taking stock of the facts. I knew my rights, I knew my property, and I knew that despite her threats and her reputation, she could not legally claim what belonged to me. That realization didn't lessen my fury. It fueled it. The thought that someone could even try this, to test boundaries so flagrantly, made my blood boil. Karen's eyes fixed on mine with that unyielding gaze made it clear she expected me to submit, but my hatred for her behavior, for the arrogance that masked itself as authority, only grew stronger. I wasn't going to let her believe for a second that my home was hers to command. This was personal now, and I knew deep down that I would not let it go unchallenged. My mind tightened, readying itself for the confrontation I knew was inevitable. Hatred, sharp and undeniable, settled into my chest. It was the fuel I didn't know I needed, the force that would guide my next steps. Karen had thrown the first punch, not realizing that I wasn't someone who could be intimidated, and in that moment I promised myself I wouldn't let her win. The morning sun rose over my quiet Arizona neighborhood, and I felt a restless tension in the air. Even before I opened my eyes, I sensed that something had shifted. The previous evening's confrontation with Karen, the HOA president, had left a knot of anger and unease tightening in my chest. I had hoped that perhaps she would have realized the absurdity of her demand overnight, that common sense might prevail. But deep down, I feared I knew better. By mid-morning, my fears were confirmed. A sudden knock at the front gate broke the fragile calm I had tried to nurture. I glanced through the window and froze. Karen had arrived. Again. And she wasn't alone. Behind her, a group of her guests waited, looking confused but obedient, as if they were participating in some bizarre performance orchestrated by her authority. Her presence was commanding, her posture rigid, and her expression was one of impatience and entitlement. I stepped outside, heart pounding, fists clenched at my sides. Every instinct screamed that I could not let this continue, that I had to assert my rights, and assert them clearly. My voice came out steadier than I expected. Stop. This is my house. You have no right to come in. Karen tilted her head, her expression shifting to one of incredulous outrage. She raised her voice, screeching accusations that I was violating HOA rules and threatening fines. But her words, meant to intimidate, had the opposite effect. My anger, long simmering beneath the surface, boiled over. No amount of rulebooks or authoritarian posturing could take away what was mine. I reached into my pocket, feeling the smooth edges of the deed I had worked so hard to obtain. Pulling it out, I held it up between us, the paper heavy with proof and principle. My voice, sharp and unwavering, cut through the tension. See this? My name is on it. Not yours, not the HOA. This house belongs to me. And if you step through my gate again without permission, I'll call the police. The effect was immediate. Karen's confident posture faltered for just a moment, her eyes widening in surprise. Behind her, her guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond. For once, the aura of control she carried so effortlessly seemed to waver. I took a deliberate step back and slowly, deliberately, closed the gate, locking it with a satisfying click that echoed through the quiet street. Karen's face turned crimson, a mix of frustration and disbelief. But there was nothing she could do. Her authority had limits, and at this moment, she had reached them. I could feel the tension in the air, a strange mixture of fear and respect from those around her. It was a small victory, but one that felt monumental after weeks of underlying tension. As I watched her retreat down the street, muttering under her breath and casting sharp glances over her shoulder, I felt a rush of satisfaction. The anger that had surged through me transformed into something stronger, confidence, a sense of control I had not felt since first buying this home. For the first time, I realized that standing up firmly for myself was not just necessary, it was empowering. In that moment, my home felt truly mine again. The pool glimmered in the sunlight. The flowers in the garden swayed gently in the breeze, and every small detail reminded me of why I had fought to make this place my sanctuary. Karen could try to assert her power, but she would not succeed. Not here, not ever. My anger had not only protected my home, it had restored my peace of mind, and for the first time in days, I could breathe again. A week had passed since my confrontation with Karen, and for several days I had cautiously watched the neighborhood, expecting some kind of retaliation. My mornings were tense, my eyes scanning the quiet streets for signs that she might try something new. I knew Karen well enough to expect persistence. After all, she thrived on control, but I had learned my own limits. And I was ready. Sure enough, the HOA made its move. A notice arrived, thinly veiled as a routine fine, implying that I had violated community standards by refusing to comply with her guest demands. I read the letter carefully, my blood pressure rising for a brief moment, but only briefly. My anger had been tempered with preparation. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer, an experienced property attorney named Allison Graves, who immediately understood the situation. Within hours, an official response was sent, including copies of my ownership documents, legal citations of HOA authority limits, and a pointed warning about exceeding her legal power. The next day, the response was acknowledged, and Karen's voice of authority, once so commanding, was suddenly muted. She had to back down. I could almost see the satisfaction of defeat flicker across her face in private meetings, but publicly she maintained the mask of composure she so often relied upon. Behind the carefully curated veneer, though, her control had cracked. News of the confrontation spread quickly throughout the community. Neighbors, many of whom had quietly endured Karen's overreach for years, began speaking up. One by one, they shared their experiences, stories of arbitrary fines, restrictions on personal gardens, and minor punishments that had felt unjust at the time but never confronted. For the first time, Karen's reputation as an untouchable authority figure began to crumble under scrutiny. Her past actions, once whispered about behind closed doors, were now openly discussed, and she found herself facing a community that no longer trembled at her name. At the next board election, the results were unmistakable. Karen's re-election failed. A new, more collaborative board took her place, prioritizing fairness and transparency, reflecting the voices of residents who had long been silenced. It was a moment of collective empowerment that transformed our neighborhood, creating a sense of shared ownership over both our homes and the rules governing them. I remember sitting in my backyard that evening, the warm Arizona sun casting a golden glow across the pool. I held a cup of coffee in my hands, inhaling the scent of blooming roses and freshly cut grass, and watched the former president storm out of the HOA meeting in visible fury. Her gestures were sharp, her frustration undeniable, yet I felt no fear. Instead, a profound sense of relief washed over me, followed by satisfaction that ran deeper than I had anticipated. My home, which had once been threatened by her audacity, now felt like it truly belonged to me again. Every corner, every flower, every tile by the pool became a small symbol of freedom. Freedom not just from her overreach, but from the fear and uncertainty she had imposed. I realized then that the house was more than property. It was a testament to standing up for oneself, to defending one's rights, and to asserting dignity in the face of arrogance. For the first time in weeks, I relaxed completely, sipping my coffee as the sun dipped lower in the sky. The tranquility I had longed for was restored, and with it, the knowledge that no one, not even the most imposing authority, could take my peace away from me. Karen's power was gone, and my home was once again my sanctuary. A place of freedom, pride, and quiet triumph.